Hello? All right. We are live and well. There's hardly anybody here this morning. They must have heard I was teaching class, so that's okay. You guys are the fortunate ones to get to be here this morning. It is good to see everybody. How has everybody's week been? Good week. Everybody Frontier Days'd out? No? Everybody tired? No one is talking. So obviously you had a good week. Well, obviously Chris is traveling to camp right now, so he is not here. So he asked me to fill in for him and pick a word or do anything, and so I'm just doing anything, just so you know. And that's what you're stuck with. We're going to dive into the little bit of Einstein's theory of relativity. And you may think I'm joking, but I'm not. That is exactly where we're going this morning. So, Einstein. Let's just do something easy and light this morning. And light is our key word. Just as a preface, Mark Ramey gave me a book to read. It's been a few months ago, and it's very fascinating. And the book is called The Author of Light. It's by Dr. Doug Corrigan, and it just kind of is showing God in light, or light shows God, I should say. And so that's kind of what we're going to discuss a little bit this morning, and I think it's a fascinating study. Hopefully you guys do as well. But just to preface, I love science and just any aspect of science, whether it's physics or chemistry or biology, anything dealing with math. Just love numbers and all those things, and always have. And there's one thing that it's always a question: Does science and God, if you are studying science, does that deny God? There's a lot of atheists in science, or you hear that. What's that?
There's a lot of science that supports what happens in the Bible.
And
They tried to disprove it and ended up proving it.
Absolutely.
Because the responses on top of mountains from sea creatures.
Absolutely. Every aspect of science, and that's a great point, every aspect of science actually screams God's presence and screams the Creator. The creation supports the Creator 100%, and as far as the proof. And so when you dig into science, just a little bit, you see God. You see God's fingerprints, you see God's identity, and you see pretty much all aspects of God. And this morning we're just going to again dive into kind of a very complicated topic, that being the theory of relativity, and talk about light. But what we want to show through this class, and hopefully we can get through quite a few of these points, is that light actually, the physics of light support God, or actually demonstrates God, shows forth God. And there's several aspects of that, and we'll get into those as we go through this. We see the identity of God in the physics of light. God shines forth in that light, and it's not surprising that light would be something that's huge as far as the concept of God goes, because light was the first creation, if you will. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, and let's start with verse 1. And we'll go to the very beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then
one thing about light is it dispels fear.
Dispels fear.
It dispels fear.
Okay.
Darkness is fearful.
Okay. There's fear in the dark, or what's in the dark. A lot of bad things hide in the dark, or can. It's where Satan can hide. Any other comments? Right, I'm going to go first to 1 John chapter 1, verse 5. This is the message we have heard from him and announced to you, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. God is light. And then in John chapter 8, then Jesus again spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus saying that he is the light of life. We will not walk in the darkness as people do, walking in sin, walking in the darkness. But if we follow Jesus, follow after God, we will receive that light, and we'll have the light of life. So as you can see, God refers to himself as light. That light does shine forth. It does dispel darkness. It does reveal all things. It reveals sin. It reveals so much. And it's just amazing what light is able to do. Now let's look at how light is a metaphor for God and reveals the identity of God. We're going to look at, well, hopefully we can get through 5 things. We may not get through all 5 of those, but we'll dig right in at the beginning of this, that God is absolute and light is absolute. One of the ways that light shows the identity of God is that light is an absolute. Now, 2 postulates of the theory of relativity. One is that the laws of physics are identical in all frames of reference. And the second postulate is that the speed of light, 186,282 miles per second, is identical for all observers. The speed of light is an absolute standard. So, that being said, let's go into the theory of relativity just real quick. The speed of light has been shown that it's an absolute. There is no deviation from that, and I'll give you a couple of examples as far as relative speeds. If I have someone that's, we'll say Margaret is sitting here and she's watching me throw a ball. She's sitting, she's stationary, and I throw a ball 50 miles an hour. That ball to Margaret is going 50 miles an hour. To me, it's going 50 miles an hour. But say I'm driving in a car by Margaret and speeding by, and I'm going by at 50 miles an hour driving in my car. And I throw the ball in the same direction that I'm driving, and I can throw the ball at 50 miles an hour. Well, to Margaret, who's sitting still watching me driving by, that ball is going 100 miles an hour. It's going the 50 miles per hour of the car plus the 50 miles an hour of force that I applied to it as far as speed. So to Margaret, that ball is going 100 miles an hour. To me, it's going 50 miles an hour because I'm going along with the car. So that's just the basics of relative position. As far as the speed of a ball. Does everybody have that so far? Okay. Simple and basic. Now, if I shine a flashlight and Margaret sees the speed of the light beam going, she's going to recognize immediately that light beam going out of from my hand is going at 186,282 miles per second. She reads that and sees that instantly, that light beam coming out, that's how fast it's going. So to Margaret, sitting still, I'm standing still, shine a light, that light beam is traveling at 186,282 miles per second. We all see that. The light beam, that's the speed of the light beam. Okay, now if I'm driving 60 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour past Margaret, and I shine that light beam, to me, the light beam's going out at 186,282 miles per second. To Margaret, the speed is also 186,282 miles per second. The light beam is exactly the same speed because the speed of light is an absolute. And this has been shown over and over with just experiment after experiment trying to identify the speed of light. Now, if I'm going 20,000 miles per hour and Margaret sees me zipping by at 20,000 miles per hour and I shine a flashlight out and she sees that light coming out, the light is going 186,282 miles per second to Margaret. It's also going that exact same speed to me. If I'm going 50% of the speed of light, I'm really moving now, and that light comes out, to Margaret sitting and watching me speeding by at half the speed of light, she sees me going that fast, but the light beam that's coming, that I'm shining out, is still going the exact same speed to Margaret as it is to me, 186,282 miles per second. There's no difference in that speed of light, no matter where you're sitting and watching that light go forth. The speed of light is an absolute. It doesn't go faster. If you're going the speed of light and shine a light beam by it, that light is going it's going the speed of light. It doesn't add on like anything else in physics. Okay, does that blow your minds? That's the theory of relativity. Kind of basically boiled down. And that's the incredible thing about light. As we look at that, the ramifications of that absolute in light it's mind-boggling, and it's truly incredible. And when you start looking at the aspects and what that means as far as time, space, matter, energy, and all those things, like I say, completely is beyond the comprehension of man, which, of course, is the same as God. God is beyond really our comprehension. When we start talking about infinity and absolute power and absolute presence and absolutes that God possesses, and light has these absolute properties, we see just how incredible light is, and how it really is truly a metaphor and shows forth the identity of God. Because again, it totally blows away any aspects or how the concrete things that we think of. We think of time as something that's as an absolute. We think of time as an absolute. We know that clocks, turn, and the sun turns, and everything goes, and we live our lives based on time. And one thing we should know is God operates completely outside of time. And we'll talk a little more about that here in a bit. Let me show you a couple, and I'll read a couple of these examples out of the book here, as far as just kind of confirming what I had talked about. Following through, let's see, even if you could muster up enough energy to get up to 99.999999% the speed of light, a light beam would still move away from a spaceship at the speed of light. It doesn't add on. Even more unusual is the fact that a person standing on the ground would measure the same beam of light moving precisely at the speed of the first one. So two different observers are moving at different speeds, are measuring the speed of light as exactly identical. If two cars traveling at 60 miles an hour collide in a head-on collision, they collide at 120 miles per hour. That's just their relative speeds to each other. But that's not the case with light. A spaceship moving 50% of the speed of light towards a light beam, moving in the opposite direction towards the spaceship, the speed of the light beam does not achieve 1.5 times the speed of light. It's just the speed of light. And that's just the incredible part of that. So putting that out there, what does that do to physics and time and everything else. And that's really where we want to go with this. The speed of light, that being an absolute, really is going to set the stage for everything else I'm going to talk about this morning. And the theory of relativity, again, mind-blowing, but then again, God is mind-blowing and infinite. Let's go ahead and look at a couple verses showing the absolute nature of God. If I can find Bible. First, Malachi. And chapter 4, verse 6. He will turn the hearts of the fathers back to their children, the hearts of the children to their fathers, so that I will not come and strike the land with complete destruction. That does not sound right, does it? Three 6 is what I'm probably looking for, isn't it? Well, I wrote it down as 4, so it has to be. For I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore, you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. I do not change. Okay, God is absolute. 3 works a lot better than 4. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. One and absolute. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, this is what you shall say to the sons of Israel. I am has sent me to you. God says, I am. He is absolute, which we just described light as. Okay, Psalms 119. And verse 160. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments is everlasting. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's a pretty absolute declaration right there. And John 14, verse 6. Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Again, God deals with absolutes. Light is an absolute. Speed of light is an absolute. Okay. What are we going to do with the fact that the speed of light is an absolute number? Let's talk about time. Anybody contemplate the infinity of time and go back an hour and an hour before that and an hour before that? You ever think of that, or the time in the future, and think of it as infinity? Can we really contemplate infinity as far as time? What do you guys think of infinity?
It makes you start feeling dizzy.
Dizzy? Okay.
Think about God and his beginning and that he's always been. It's like our minds can't comprehend it.
Our minds can't comprehend, exactly. It's something that's outside of our minds. Steve?
Have you ever read the book Flatland?
Yes.
Kind of reminds me of that. We're finite creatures trying to perceive something that's beyond what we can actually understand.
We're living on a plane, and we cannot see the 3D stuff, yes.
To get to infinity, you have to be outside of time.
Okay. It's outside of time.
To prove that, we talk about something that we did a long time ago. We talk about it taking forever to do that. When in reality, it wasn't forever, but to our limited understanding of time, it was a long time ago.
Okay. Jerry?
we can only understand time in our time frame. So when we're young, we think we have a lot of time, and when we're older, we realize that's not really true. And we know about eternity, but there was an eternity before God said, "Let there be light." So we know there is an eternity, but our minds sit in specifics, like we're born, we live, we die. That's all we can comprehend right now. I don't think we'll envision the true part of that until the resurrection.
Okay, excellent point. Anybody else? Thoughts on time and the infinity of time? Or is it infinite? We don't know. What is infinity? It's another one of those concepts we have absolutely no idea about. So now go back. We know that that light is an absolute. God is an absolute. God is also timeless. Light is timeless because it has an absolute absolute speed. So there's something about light that is timeless, and I'll try to describe how this works. So you have someone that is in a train. Okay, so now we have a person in a train. I guess we can use Margaret as sitting in a train now, since she's sitting here in front of me. But she has a clock, and she's able to measure just time very, very, it's a very small increment of time, put it that way. And she has a laser beam that she's going to shoot out, and it's on the floor in front of her. She has a laser, it shoots up, hits a mirror, and then the light comes back down. And she's able to measure the time that light in traveling the distance from the ground in front of her up and then back down, so straight back down. She's able to measure that, and she comes up with a time measurement. She's traveling on this train. Okay, so the train's going really, really fast. We can, whatever speed you want to put for it. Well, someone who's standing outside and can see that train that whole distance is watching, and when she hits the switch and the laser shoots up to the mirror and then comes back down, the person who's watching the train go by, there's a period of time where the beam goes up to the mirror and back down. So it's not, for Margaret sitting in front of it, the light beam goes straight up and straight down. For someone who's sitting outside of the train watching, and the train's going by, the beam comes up and comes back down, and it actually makes a triangle, if you will. So as we measure that, and the train has to be going really, really fast for that triangle to have any real distance at all, because light goes at 186,282 miles per second, so it's very fast. But anyway, so they've done this experiment, but the person sitting timing that light when it hits the mirror and when it comes back down, the amount of time, because they have a stopwatch that's as good as Margaret's stopwatch, the amount of time is exactly the same. The amount of time that passes from that light beam coming up and hitting the mirror to it coming down, the time is the same whether you're sitting in front of it and it goes straight up and straight down, or you're watching it go by and it shoots up and comes down. The amount of time is exactly the same. Okay. How is that possible? The light is an absolute. The speed of light is an absolute. But you're saying, wait a second, it traveling straight up and straight down has to be different than the time it takes to go a longer distance. Because when I watched it, it went that far. When Margaret watched it, it just went that far. So there's a distance that's different. So how is it possible that it takes the same amount of time?
The person's perception, especially the one on the outside
It's going, it's,
Longer.
you would think, right? It should go longer. But it's not. It's the same amount. They're reading their clock and it's exactly the same.
It's your perception through your eyes. Just
Okay? Perception through your eyes. Steve, you're thinking.
I know that light can be affected by gravitational forces. So, like light can be bent.
Okay, there's no gravity where we're in this
But
train.
But the light's not bending to the person in the train, so that's not
Yeah.
feasible.
Okay.
It's because each observer, their clock is running different. So Margaret's on the train, we see her clock actually moving slower than our clock, and she sees our clock moving faster than her clock.
Okay.
They've done this experimentally with the space station because it's moving so fast around the Earth that the astronaut's clock is actually running slower.
Okay.
They've done it, it's microseconds, but, an astronaut going up and coming back down is ever so slightly younger than they were when they went up.
Okay. Jerry just explained it. Go ahead, Rob.
I was gonna say basically the same thing. Motion, or time is a combination of light and distance, or motion and distance.
Mm-hmm.
It equals time. And since motion is absolute, you have to change time.
Time. The time is different. Go ahead, Jerry.
Margaret was sitting right there, so she didn't have to move her head. But the guy that was watching the train go by, he had to move his head, so that his perspective and Margaret's perspective are not the same anymore. Because you can't see, if you have something traveling that fast, you can't see it straight on. You have to turn your head with it. And so the light didn't move, but his head moved.
His head moved. Okay. That's a good theory. I like that one. The reality is that because we know that the speed of light is an absolute, we know that the distance is different, so time, because velocity is distance over time, so the fact of the matter is, if it's the exact same amount of time for each viewer, time has to be different for each person. And Jerry's absolutely right. They've actually done this experiment on the space station, other things that are traveling very, very fast, and their clocks run different from each other. The time, the actual lapse time is different. Time is different depending on where you're at and how you're moving relative to each other. The actual time is different. Again, kind of a mind-blowing concept that time isn't absolute, because time isn't absolute. Time is relative to everything else. It's completely different. The speed of light is absolute. God is absolute. Time is not. Time does not work that way. Go ahead, Rod.
You also have to get into gravity. Gravity plays a part of that too.
Okay, absolutely. One aspect of this, yes.
We had an interesting thing happen to us yesterday. We were at a restaurant and it rained, and when we came out, when we walked out the door, there was 2 rainbows.
Okay.
But we walked about, I don't know, 50 feet, and I said something to Ruth about there being 2 rainbows, and I looked back up there, and it wasn't there. And so actually it was the perspective of the way we looked at where the rainbows were. And I think the light coming through it from a different angle changed what we saw. And that's kind of what actually happens there. It depends on where you're at is what you can see. Because if I'm right here, I can't see you because of Tom's head. But over here I can see you, but you didn't move.
I did not move. So you're blaming Tom?
Yeah, blame Tom. But
Okay,
anyway,
Tom's moving.
that's-
Okay.
That's the whole point, is that the perspective of where we are is what we see.
Okay. What if we were able to move at the speed of light, or close to the speed of light? How fast would your how fast would your clock be moving? Relative, I guess. The fact of it is, if you could move at the speed of light, your clock would move infinitely slow. It wouldn't be moving at all. By perception, no time would pass. If you're moving the speed of light, no time would be passing. Just go ahead.
Einstein's experiment, or thought experiment, for this was looking at a clock tower and then moving away from it at the speed of light. And you wouldn't see the hand move because the light would never reach you. So it would appear that the clock would stop.
So-
If you were moving away at the speed of light.
So, absolutely. So the speed of light can cause time to basically time stand still if you are moving at the speed of light with what you're seeing. There is no time there. So here, just concept on this. How can two different observers measure different durations for the same event? The only way this can occur is if time flows at a different rate for each observer. The clock of the person on the train must move slower when compared to the clock on the person on the ground. And that, again, is a concept that, it's pretty incredible to just try to comprehend. But knowing that God is timeless, knowing the property of light is an absolute and the absolute speed, if we were able to travel at that speed, or as God does, there is no time. Time ceases really to exist for that. So God actually lives outside of time, and God is timeless. And I have a few verses to just kind of demonstrate the timelessness of God, if we want to go ahead and take a look at that. Let's see, start in Isaiah chapter 57 and verse 15. For this is what the high and exalted one who lives forever, whose name is holy, says, I dwell in a high and holy place, and also with the contrite and lowly of spirit, in order to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. Lives forever in a high and holy place. Psalms 40. And no, that'd be 90. My 9 looks like a 4. 90 verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or like a watch in the night. 1,000 years is like yesterday, a day. 2 Peter 3:8. Basically, do not let this one fact escape your notice, beloved, that with the Lord, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. And then Isaiah 46. Verse 10 and 11. Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things which have not been done, saying, my plan will be established, and I will accomplish all my good pleasure. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my purpose from a distant country. Truly I have spoken, truly I will bring it to pass. I have planned it, I will certainly do it. The end from the beginning. And for God, that time doesn't even exist in there. From the beginning to the end, He sees it all. God is outside of time. Only 5 more minutes. Okay. We've only gotten through 2 things. 1, God is absolute, God's absolute, light is an absolute, and 2, timelessness of God, and light is timeless as well. Do I have a hand? No? Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add Revelation 22. To your list it says, behold, I'm coming soon. It's Jesus speaking. Bringing my recompense with me to repay each one for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the
Very good. Also a good verse. Third point is omnipotence, the omnipotence of God. And kind of compared to that is the infinite power required to actually reach light speed. So, with the theory of relativity, one of the items there is that mass of an object increases as its velocity increases. So the mass goes up as the velocity increases. And as the object approaches light speed, the mass of the object goes to infinity. So if you're able to take something and accelerate it up to light speed, it would be infinite in mass. And thus the amount of power required to propel, or the amount of energy required to propel that object also goes up towards infinity as the object approaches light speed. So, infinite mass, and it would take infinite energy in order to accelerate it. So, one thing we want to, as far as, and man being man, I love science fiction and talking about warp speed and going the speed of light is a great thing. The problem is we don't have an energy source yet that can get there, because the energy source we need is infinite. Of course, in like Star Trek, they're not just going warp speed; they're going beyond the speed of light, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12 times the speed of light, which, as we've shown before, is absolutely impossible because you can't go faster than the speed of light. But anyway, the amount of energy needed, and we actually do experiments and try to get things to go the speed of light. That's one of man's dreams, is to be able to go the speed of light, thus being like God. Now, there's the Hadron Collider, and with that, they accelerate electrons, and I'm going to read this paragraph to give you a little bit of the amount of energy required attempting to accelerate it. If you attempt to accelerate an object that is incredibly small, an electron is incredibly small, it requires an infinite amount of energy to get it to accelerate to the speed of light. The closest we have come to accelerating subatomic particles close to the speed of light is at the Large Hadron Collider, and that uses 7 tera-electron volts of energy to accelerate subatomic particles to 99.999999991% of the speed of light. And to accelerate those particles, that last little bit requires all of the energy in the known universe to get them to go faster than that, plus an infinite amount of energy. I mean, they're already using 7 tera-electron volts of energy. So how much is that, Steve?
I don't know what a tera-electron volt is.
I don't either. It sounds like a lot.
Volts are.
I know what a volt is. I don't know what but tera is a big number. I didn't look up what a tera-electron volt was either. I know it's a lot of energy, more energy than what a windmill would put out.
Turbine.
Or turbine, sorry.
About the same as like New York City uses in the day.
Okay. New York City uses that amount, and they're accelerating a subatomic particle almost to the speed of light, but not quite there. And it's more energy than we can imagine. And it's to get it just that little bit more we don't have enough energy. There's not enough energy in the universe. God's able to do it, but incredibly, we're not able to as man. So as far as anybody wanting to go boldly go where no one has gone before, we're probably not going to be able to do that. We just don't have the energy source to do that until we discover dilithium crystals or something. Let's see. So God, omnipotent, all powerful. Let's look at 3 verses demonstrating that. Jeremiah 32. Let me get to Jeremiah. 17. O Lord God, behold, you yourself have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and by your outstretched arm. Nothing is too difficult for you. Job chapter 11. Can you discover the depths of God? Can you discover the limits of the Almighty? They are as high as the heavens. What can you do? Deeper than Sheol, what can you know? Its measurement is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. If he passes by or apprehends people or calls an assembly, who can restrain him? For he knows false people and he sees injustice without investigating. And then Matthew 19:26, and actually in Job, the last bit where God talks about, love that part also, talks about who he is and asks Job, where was he? Matthew 19:26, and looking at them, Jesus said to them, with people this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. God is omnipotent. In contemplating light, or in contemplating God, we see just how powerful, how incredible, and how amazing God is. Light just is that representation to us. And as man looks into the physics of light and tries to explain things and just try to comprehend things, we see just how amazing God is in just that one thing, light. Two other points, we don't have time for them, but for you to consider is God is omnipresent, and light is something that is also reveals and is shown as omnipresent also. And God is omniscient, knowing everything, and we utilize light now to transfer information and knowledge. And what's incredible is there is no limit to how much information can be put in a beam of light if we're able to, as we transfer that. So when you sign up for Blue Peak and get your information, that's why you can get it so fast, I guess, through there. So put a plug in for them. I don't know why I don't have it, and probably won't, but anyway, they dug up around our house, so. But light, God, theory of relativity, and that's all the time we have this morning. Any comments or thoughts this morning? Heather.
I think it's important to distinguish between an infinite number, like something that God is infinite, and something that's a part of creation that is uncountable, unfathomable, unmeasurable, but we know it has to be finite because it's a part of creation, and we know that God is over that. I think he did create certain things about, like, for example, the universe that we haven't measured the end of, to show us the concept of his infiniteness. But I don't think that the universe, creation itself, is infinite. Because otherwise, if it was infinite in any measure, it would actually be God itself. But it's not. That's a false teaching. The universe is not God.
Okay.
God is over and above that. But he creates things that are uncountable and unfathomable and unmeasurable to us.
That's an excellent point, and that's the concept of God. And I think God is outside all of these. When we talk about light and time and energy, power, and all those things, God is he's outside of all those things, which is why he can be everywhere at the same time and know everything at the same time. And I say time when he's outside of time. So time doesn't even exist for God. It does for us. So yeah, absolutely. God is above and beyond all those things. And that's, in considering the size of the universe or considering light or considering anything, it's hard for us to comprehend those things. But the very existence of light and the properties that we see, to us, it shows forth God. It shows the power and the majesty of the Creator. And really, that's kind of the main point of what we have this morning. So appreciate everybody's attention, and thank you for that. We'll be dismissed now and get ready for worship this morning.